Well, hello and hello to everyone who's watching this afternoon, this evening, wherever you are. Welcome to Cedarwood Faces. This episode, which is episode 3 of our series, is a special one, and we're really excited to be chatting today with Dez.
Mate, how are you? It's so good to be here, by the way.
Yeah, it's
Well,
great to have you.
I know that here is online and we're not actually anywhere apart from our living rooms, but
Yeah, it's great. It's great to have you on today, Dez. And Dez is the director of Alpha Scotland and the European Alpha Youth Ambassador. And we're really excited to hear more about those roles and what that actually involves in a minute. As everyone knows, or people who are familiar now with Cedarwood Faces, these chats are really just to get people involved and to introduce people a bit to the people who are going to be involved in Cedarwood Festival this year and in the future years as well. If you do have any questions, then do ping them in the chat, and we will endeavour to kind of answer those as we go. And Des can have a smash at them. And as ever, if you do want to follow our channels and more information about Cedarwood, then do feel free to just subscribe to the channel or the other social networks at Cedarwood Festival. So Des, great to have you on today, my friend. How are you doing?
yeah, mate, I am doing well. I am doing well. How about you?
Yeah, really good. Thanks. Really good. It's been a good few days, and I'm calling. I'm just in York at the moment. Whereabouts are you zooming in from today?
So I am in Kirkintilloch, so just north of Glasgow. So yeah, loving it. The wind and rain are horizontal at the moment. So it's a
Wow,
good Glaswegian day here.
wow. It sounds very similar to other Scottish weathers I've heard on the news. Every day you look at the news and you kind of wonder why Scotland gets the worst bit at the top. So I kind of thought that was the case, but yeah.
Yeah, the truth is that it's actually gloriously sunny here. We just pay everyone off to keep it to ourselves, really. That's what it is, mate.
I will. I look forward to coming and visiting in
Yeah,
Glasgow very soon, as
yeah.
soon as things lift. But guys, as everyone knows, we're in this lockdown pandemic situation, and we really want to make the most of being able to have these conversations, which is to introduce people to some of the faces that are going to be at Cedarwood. So, Des, great to have you on again. Let's kick off a bit for those who don't know about you, but
Mm,
just share with us a bit about your overview of your life, your ministry, and yeah, and obviously you've shared where you're from. I think
yeah,
people can gather that one from now. But yeah, just kind of your life and your ministry, and then we'll dig down a bit into like family and
sure.
talk about how you came to Christ and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, hi, it's great to be here. I am married to Fiona, who actually runs everything in the background of my life and makes it look like I'm successful, but she's actually the real rock, as we all know. Um, you know, um, but yeah, so we live in Kirky. We've got a couple of kids. I lead Alpha, I think, in Scotland. The reality is that Alpha's a kind of law unto itself, and it's just we just try to catch the wave of what's happening, and so that's really really exciting. I'm an ordained Baptist minister by background, so I used to lead an Eden team. For anyone who doesn't know, that's like an incarnational missional team. So we moved into an area of mass deprivation and just tried to pour out love to people in that
Wow.
space. But yeah, I became a Christian kind of 13 years ago on Alpha, and my life has been a whirlwind kind of ever since, mate. To be honest,
Wow.
but you
Wow.
know,
So it's interesting how you came to Christ, became a Christian through this Alpha
mhm,
course, and then obviously you're now working for Alpha. It's pretty awesome.
mm,
I've known you a number of years now, Des, but for people, and obviously we're very familiar with what Alpha is, but for people who are
mm.
maybe tuning in who are just starting the journey or maybe from a different country, just tell us quickly what Alpha is. This is the 1 minute Alpha pitch right
Sure,
here.
the elevator pitch. Yeah, so Alpha is a space to ask the biggest questions of life. It's questions that we all ask, like, why is there suffering in the world? Is there more to life than this? Does prayer work? Like, these are all questions that, regardless of age, stage, life, background, that we all think about and maybe have discussed with people at different points. And Alpha's a space to allow those conversations to happen in a really safe environment where people will just care for you. And actually, the majority, well, in fact, all of the Alpha just now is taking place online. So you can do it in your living room. It takes about an hour and a half over a number of weeks, and it's just a space to chat about God and dream about the biggest things and that we all think about, really. I think that's the best way. We would normally, the truth is that Alpha is normally food. You have food, and then you watch a video
I
together, and
wondered
then,
when this was going to come in. Des.
and then you discuss these things over a full belly with sticky toffee pudding, probably stuck in your beard somewhere. Like, it's a special space, and doing it online has changed that massively. Like, we don't have that hospitality part, but there's a real beauty in the fact that we're actually doing it in one another's homes. Like, it's nice to sit in someone else's living room almost and be a part of their life. And there's a transaction that takes place in there that doesn't even happen around the dinner table. So it's beautiful to be a part of. I'm on my 17th Alpha online at the moment, so
Amazing.
It's phenomenal.
You're ahead of me. I'm on 7, so you're doing really well. Des, keep going.
Yeah. To be fair, they pay me to do it, so that's the thing, isn't it?
In terms of it, so Alpha, Des, that's a great explanation. For those, is it for anyone? Is it for any age, and how much does it cost? What's for those who are asking, maybe?
Yeah, so it's free. It's for anyone. Literally, I've run Alpha from gangs to grannies and everything in between. There's a youth Alpha program as well for those kind of 13 to 18-year-olds. So if you've got any young people that would like to kind of look at that, it's amazing. And they actually tie in really well with the adult film series. They line up perfectly. And that allows, so we had a church in Edinburgh, for example, in 2019 that run the course on a Sunday morning instead of church. So they looked at the Alpha together, but they did the youth and like family one at the same time. And it meant that mum and dad could speak to the teenagers and vice versa, so it's just this beautiful thing, really.
It's amazing. Yeah. So Des, let's jump back to, we've heard about your family, which is amazing, and they're keeping the bedrock, which many families, I can imagine, are. In terms of you and your kind of your life, obviously you're in Glasgow now, just outside of Glasgow. Where did it all start? Am I correct that it was Aberdeen, or is it somewhere else?
Yeah. So I was born in Aberdeen, and then I lived there for a while, and then we moved up to Speyside, and that's where my dad's family's from. I grew up in a little village called Rothes, which actually is the same village that Sandy Miller's from, who's the guy who started Alpha. So, which is just a random God incident. But yeah, so I grew up there. I wanted to be a superstar DJ. It seemed like the best job in the world, getting to press play on some records and getting paid for it. And I really dreamt big. And I was very famous in Elgin. You've never heard of Elgin? That's how big a city it is. So so it was really, really funny. Like, I had champagne dreams and lemonade lifestyle. It was very different to what was going on, but I got really involved in the party scene, and I just always wanted to be on the edge of that. I started working on the doors as well, just so I was kind of constantly around things and working all the time. But I developed a long-term drug habit during that time, because it's just what happens. Like, if you're living in that world, in that bubble. I didn't grow up a Christian. I didn't have any church background or anything. So actually, the people that I looked to and the people that I spent time with were people who were okay with that being what happened. That was just the culture. So I continued my life in that way. Moved to Glasgow in 2003 because needed a change. And hey, if you've got a drug problem, you should move to Glasgow. It's the center of the universe for many things, but cocaine was always my drug of choice. And I just got totally out of hand, and I took an overdose one night, and I took over about 10 minutes. I took about 6 or 7 grams. Like, I was just going at it, and I felt like I was having a heart attack, and I cried out to God or someone that I just wanted to live. And then I woke up the next day and never touched cocaine again.
Wow.
But in my self-indulgent way, I just put it down to the fact that I am incredible because, mate, you've met me. You know that I'm incredible. Do you know?
We've
Like,
consumed food together. We've experienced good times. Yeah,
yeah.
definitely.
So, so I lived in this bubble where like I was the center of the universe and just
Mm.
put it down to that. But I kept meeting Christians, which was quite weird. Especially when you're a Glasgow bouncer, very bizarre to keep meeting Christians. And through that, I basically ended up working with a girl who was a Christian, and I asked her out, and she said no because I wasn't a Christian, and I couldn't get my head around that. Like, why do you actually believe this stuff? So I started reading the Bible to prove her wrong, and I got to Ecclesiastes 3, and it says there's a season for everything under heaven, and there's just this beautiful poetry of balance. And I just saw my life unpack, and I was like, do you know what? There must be more to life than this. There must be more than what I'm living for right now, which was a faster car, a bigger TV, and a nicer couch. That's all I wanted, And I was just like, there must be more to life than this. And long story short, went to church, got invited on an Alpha course, and had a miraculous, powerful encounter with Jesus on the Holy Spirit weekend. And it just turned my life around. And ever since, it's just been going for God and just whatever that takes.
That's absolutely phenomenal story, and I've obviously we've talked about each other's testimonies and stuff many times, but every time you hear it, it's so powerful, and I think it's just a testament to what God's done in your life, as to, I often say, from Aberdeen to Alpha, it's a huge jump, although there probably is Alpha now in Aberdeen, which you
There's
can
some
maybe talk
amazing
about.
Alpha happening in Aberdeen. Yeah. Brenda is doing an amazing job up there.
It must be amazing going back to Aberdeen, where you probably had all your old haunts and being able to kind of wander into those places and obviously have a very different worldview and mindset on that now, and obviously be able to spearhead this program with Alpha.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's just amazing to see the transformation that God can make in someone's life, and like I realize that I'm selfish in thinking that because it's my life. But if I look at, I genuinely thought I was going to be in the 27 club. Like I didn't see much beyond that, And I'm now sitting here, 38, married to the girl who introduced me to God. We've got 2 kids, we've got a third on the way. Like I get to do all this amazing stuff. I'm a reverend. Like, what is that about? And you're just like, God is good, man.
Yeah, I think out of all the people I know who are, and God obviously uses anyone. He uses me, he uses you. Thank goodness for that. But out of all the people who I know who are kind of reverends, pastors, whatever people want to, vicars, whatever people want to call them, I think you do smash all the molds in that
Thanks,
area,
mate. Yeah.
and it's a good thing. It's a good thing. I think
Yeah,
they need to be broken down because at the end of the day, as we know, it's about inside, isn't it? Not what
totally.
whether there's been an issue with my hairstyle or my beard or any other aspect. So that's awesome, and it's amazing to hear that. That's cool. So jumping on, we've talked about how you came to know Christ as your Lord and Savior. You've come from Aberdeen to Glasgow. In terms of are you still in touch with any of the DJing crowd? Is that something that you're just kind of left behind, or I know some people do, but is that something you're still in touch with, or?
Yeah. Like, friends are friends for life, like when you've spent years working on the door with someone or working in a nightclub with someone, there's a camaraderie there. And it's one of those joyous friendships, you don't need to see each other every week. But when you do touch base, it's just like nothing, no time has passed, it can be years. Like one of my great friends moved to New Zealand and I hadn't seen him for 6 years. And we came and had dinner, and it was just like things had never broken stride. So it's important to keep like I say real people. What I mean by that is it's important to keep non-church people in your life, I think, as a Christian, because we need to be able to talk to anyone and understand the reality of life. Within church we can rapidly become safe and inclusive, like inclusively exclusive, if you know what I mean. Like we intend to bring people in, but We use language that stops people from doing that. We have environments that stop people from coming in the door. Like, you know, there's loads of things that just become barriers for people. And actually hearing that and staying in touch with your friends, it keeps you grounded, I think.
Yeah, I think it brings me back to go and make disciples of all nations and all types, people types, and then on top of that, always be prepared to share and give a reason for the hope that you have. And that doesn't, it's not, segmented to the people that you know or the people, it's the whole, it's anyone, and I think that's
Yeah,
so important.
yeah.
That's so important.
And I always think as well, Francis of Assisi, I think, is normally who's quoted as saying this, but I don't know if it was him. But, preach the gospel every day and use words
Yeah.
if you have to,
Yeah.
So actually just being with these guys and, and letting them see that there's other options, or for other people in my life to see that I don't react the same way I used to. Like, God has changed me. Like, I still get angry. I still want to punch stuff, but I don't act on it anymore, which is a big change for me,
Yeah.
So
Transformation does. Transformation.
Yeah, absolutely.
So jumping from you became a Christian, a Christ follower, and then did you? I mean, that was through Alpha. How did you connect with Alpha in a kind of working sense? If we go from you became a Christian, you then became a Baptist minister. Is that correct?
Well, yeah,
and then you came into Alpha.
Yeah, there was a lot of steps in there, but I was actually I did a lot of youth work. I started doing a discipleship year with Vineyard, which was the church that I first started going to, which was where they run Alpha. And I was part of that church for about 6 years, did a lot of youth work there, and we ran small groups. And those guys really, put some solid foundations in my life that are still fundamental to the things that I do today, and in that time. And that kind of built up to ended up with me going to Bible college, which I went to the Baptist college, and God really moved us on from Vineyard, and we felt we were called to go into a Baptist church, and we were involved in there. I was a student pastor for a couple of years at a church down in the West Coast, and then we led the Eden team, and I was ordained into that. But while I was working all the way through that, I was running Alpha all the time,
right, okay.
And I just continued to run Alpha, and then I was working with Ali Lang, who used to be the youth coordinator for Alpha Scotland, and through that I ended up going to HTB to run Alpha conference, and I got asked to share my testimony on stage with Nikki, which was an amazing honour and experience. And then when I came back, they asked if I would like to kind of start getting a little bit more involved in stuff. So I volunteered for a while, and then I was a day a week doing youth stuff. Then I was the youth coordinator, and then 3 years ago they made me the director. And then just in January, I took on this youth ambassador role for Europe, the Middle East, and North Africa. So
it's amazing. What a story!
It's wild, man.
What a story. Yeah. So how did you find? Firstly, how did you find coming south of the border? Coming into England, should we say? How was that from
once we got through passport control, it was absolutely fine. But it's actually like we always make a joke about it, but I love England. I love London. Like, I love being down there, and actually, but one of the really interesting things for me is, especially being in HTB, in the middle of South Kensington, just being in that environment is just it's crazy. You've got Harrods on the corner, you've got Hyde Park, the Albert Hall. It's just our office is opposite the Natural History Museum. It's
a phenomenal location. It's a phenomenal location. Yeah. And that's awesome. Dez, so you got made Alpha director in Scotland. So talk us through what that means. Like, how big's the team in Scotland, and what are you guys doing in Scotland, like, for Alpha? Just tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah. So hey, like, we are so blessed. Like, I literally have the best job in the world, mate. I'm passionate about seeing people come to faith. I love Scotland, and I get to do that every day. Like, I get to meet with church leaders, Alpha leaders, youth leaders, young people, like guests all the time who are on this journey of faith at various places, and actually just seeing what's taking place across the nation. is just the best thing in the world. Like, you know, and I'm really lucky in that I get to network with a lot of these guys. So, you know, I can maybe hear about something happening in, let's say, Aberdeen, and then I'm talking to someone in Dumfries who is thinking something similar, and I can connect the dots between those guys. And you know, we might like we've been hosting a youth call all the way through lockdown with youth leaders from across the nation, and just hearing how they're getting on and how can we pray for them and how can we share ideas and support one another, you know, like so it's brilliant that a part of my role allows me to do that. So that's a big part of it, and obviously helping churches just to make Alpha work for them in their context is massive. And on the
Because
team,
I can imagine that's very different, isn't it? I mean, some churches, you know, different scales. You know,
yeah,
what does that look like? There's, you know,
yeah,
the differences
absolutely.
there.
So within the team, we've got various different people. So Brenda, for example, I mentioned her earlier. She covers the Northeast for us, and she works with Catalyst, which is a church out Aberdeen that have planted all over Scotland, part of the Vineyard family. You know, and she oversees their Alpha, and just you know, literally, you've got city centre Aberdeen to rural, you know, parts of Aberdeenshire and all the way down to Greenock. So even just within the people dynamics of that, like it's really interesting to see how we can separate that and make it work for everyone. And then Peter Anderson's our operations manager, and he heads up our Church of Scotland work and what that looks like, and how do we serve the Church of Scotland well? Because you know, 1,500 churches across Scotland, like you know, there's a huge spectrum of expressions of faith within that. You know, some will run Alpha, some will run Christianity Explored, some will do their own thing. Like, and we just want to serve the local church as best we can. And Laura heads up all our social media and our kind of communication engagement. And you know, we really, the same as you guys, try to keep everything as available and as current for people as possible, and speaking to different digital high streets. You know, speaking to different places. So senior leaders were maybe talking on Twitter. You know, young people were going down Instagram. You know, for the great and the good, we're looking at Facebook. Like, you know, so how do we negotiate that? And Laura's amazing at doing that. And Caris is on our team as well. She heads up our prisons work, and that is just something that's just really lighting a fire right now across opportunities. And just you know, we're part of doing a trial just now, just rethinking how do we serve prisoners well, and how do we make Alpha accessible for them, especially during, you know, long periods of extended lockdown, you know.
Des, you mentioned prisons there. We've obviously heard a bit about Alpha, the traditional Alpha, I can imagine being done in a church. Prisons is another area. For those who don't know, do you want to just expand about the other areas? So you've mentioned those two, and I'm guessing the prison Alpha is done inside the middle of a prison. What about the other areas? Talk us through briefly about that.
Yeah, so Alpha's as flexible as your imagination is. So, you know, for myself personally, in the past, we would have run Alpha in coffee shops, you know, pubs, you know, in a church, in a house, like wherever you can gather some people together to share. And online has just changed that massively for us. The other side of that is that within other organizations, we see people running Alpha. So, you know, for example, some Christian people that we know run a care home, and they've run Alpha in there just for some old folks, and it's just to help have conversations, and for some of them just to be reminded of what faith looks like, you know, in a different environment, so to speak. But we've also, you know, we've had Alpha running at some of the Premiership football clubs in Scotland. I can't name which ones, but you know, it literally has run everywhere. If you can think of a context, you know, a Scottish doctor run it at the South Pole when they were down there as the doctor on site, you know, and we've had people running it at base camp in the Himalayas, and you know, it's crazy.
Wow. That's amazing. Wow. Well, going back to the football, I mean, from what I've understood, there's only two main teams in Scotland anyway, so it must be somewhere near there. And from what I've heard, there's no real rivalry anyway. So
no, yeah. Yeah, I think Partick Thistle make a lot of noise. You know, there's
Yeah,
another team that kick about Glasgow. I can't remember who they are, but yeah,
don't know.
you
Yeah, I
know,
don't know.
yeah,
I don't know. I think they might have some managed by some English person. I don't know. But anyway,
yeah, no idea.
no idea. But in terms of Des, that's amazing. So, what could you just share maybe a few of the like favorite parts of your job, and
Mm,
maybe a
yeah,
story from Alpha that obviously you get to see so many different salvations, but also contexts for you. What is kind of one of the we've actually had one of these a question just come in actually is to kind of you've seen all these different contexts. What for you
mm,
is like your favorite part of the job, but also a story that is like, wow, I never thought that would ever happen.
yeah, yeah. So, oh mate, where to start? Like, I think my favorite thing is seeing people alive sharing their faith with their friends. Like that's the gold for me. Like
Hmm.
I can turn up at an event and just sit in the back and just watch people sit with like people they've known their whole life, or people that have been their neighbours for years, and just share the hope, the expectation, the joy they have, the love that they understand from Christ
Mm.
with one another. Like I'll never ever get tired of that. It's just absolutely beautiful. And I think one story that always stands out to me was a guy called Dave from Aberdeen. He came to
It
faith,
all seems to be happening in Aberdeen. It
mate.
seems to be a place we all need to
Revi-
get to.
revival's
Um,
coming from the north, my friend. I'm telling you. So he had been on Alpha about 8 times, and then eventually came to faith. And he had an
wow.
alcohol problem. He had been in jail, like really, really difficult life. And he came to faith, and he was so passionate about telling his friends about Jesus, and just saying, actually, I know that there's people that need this in their life. And he asked me if I would speak at it, or share my story at it, and I was like, mate, absolutely. So I drove up from Glasgow, went up to see him, and he was standing there, and he had two napkins. He had a grey napkin and a black napkin, and he was like, which one looks better for the tables? Like, now this is a guy that he just cared so deeply about
Wow.
sharing God's love with people, that he was like going into these crazy details, and making sure it was perfect, and he welcomed everybody. And it was just like, see if you never ever see anything else again, Des, that's
Mm.
okay. Like, it was
It
so
just shows
special.
it's such a heart change, isn't it? It's such a
Yeah,
heart change. I
yeah.
mean that, yeah, it's amazing. And wow, yeah, Des, thanks for sharing that. And there's probably countless more. And obviously,
Mm,
if you see Des at any of the events, whether it's another online event we're doing at some point or in the flesh, then I'm sure he'll be happy to share more of these stories with anyone who's wanting
absolutely.
to know.
Anytime.
Um,
Anytime.
so yeah, but yeah, kind of moving on. Obviously, we're in a pandemic.
Mm,
Everyone knows that. One of the reasons we're able to do all these conversations is because of that. And I just wanted to understand, Des. Obviously, ministries have been hit in different ways,
mm.
and Alpha, I can imagine, is no different to that. How have things um, how has COVID affected Alpha in the UK and also in Scotland? And how have
Mm.
you guys kind of adapted to make that work and kind of seen that opportunity?
Yeah, a great question, mate. I have to say, we have seen probably the greatest rallying of Alpha for a really long time, moving online. Like, it's just been epic to be a part of. The biggest Alpha course ever ran, 2,500 people online all together doing Alpha. Like, it's just like,
Wow.
whoa, we hadn't even, Nicky said that he never thought Alpha online would work,
Mm,
and we're there in March saying, well, we've got to give it a try. And in Scotland, Laura's mum had actually ran Alpha online on Zoom in 2019. So she was way ahead of the curve of everybody, and we ran it. I trialed it with some friends. So when lockdown actually hit, we started about a week before everyone so that we could try and hit the ground running. I worked with Johnny, who's my counterpart in Northern Ireland, and we did an online training 10 days in, and we had no idea what we were doing. We were just like, this is what we think is going to work. We're trialing it, like, work with us. And it's just exploded. Like, we had over 400 courses running in Scotland last year. There was like new churches that had never ran Alpha before, that were getting involved. I think yeah, it was nearly 4,000. Josh Kempton will kill me because I don't know the exact figure, but it was like nearly 4,000 courses across the UK last year. It's just like unbelievable opportunity for just new dynamic ways of people communicating and sharing the gospel with their friends. And so we've been amazingly blessed. And in things like this, we've got an opportunity now to speak to more people in new ways. And, like I've been, I was helping doing some training for Alpha in New Zealand. I've spoke to a couple of churches in the States. I was doing some stuff out with some guys in Canada. Like, normally that would have been, a once a year, maybe if you were lucky trip, and now you can do it on a Tuesday. It's just there's a shrinking that's taking place.
Which day do you want to do it rather than which month, kind of thing.
Yeah.
No,
absolutely.
it's exactly that. It has opened, I think, for those who want to seize opportunity. There have been tremendous opportunities, and I know, having run Alpha courses myself as well, looking at the film series, obviously it's something that was used beforehand, and obviously Alpha had that in the bag, which was amazing. But that's obviously been a huge aspect, hasn't it? Having that ready and to go. So
yeah, absolutely, and it lends itself to doing this so well. It's almost, and the reality is, let's be honest. If you're sitting at the start of the pandemic and you think, I need to do something to engage people that I care about with God, how am I going to do that? You pretty much end up with Alpha Online.
Yeah.
So actually it's custom built almost for doing that, so and actually even the Holy Spirit weekend, or the day away, like doing that online. We did a Scotland wide one a couple of weeks ago. So we had 17 churches with 160 guests, and it was really to bring smaller churches that had smaller alphas together to do a bigger experience. And it was just amazing. We had people come to faith. We had words of knowledge for people, like people just responding in prayer, and just to be a part of that online. Like we wouldn't get 160 guests normally to being a part of that online for so many people. Amazing. It's amazing.
That's absolutely amazing hearing that. And in terms of what obviously with your role, you see all these different things going on, these amazing expressions, these amazing churches coming together. What do you think God is saying to Scotland, to Alpha Scotland, through all this? Obviously, there's many different views of what may be happening, but for you and your team, what do you think God's saying through this in terms of through this pandemic time and this year now? We've come to 1 year. I think it is today that the COVID lockdown started. So
yeah, well, we've actually, as a team, we've taken we took a week really early on at the start of the pandemic just to pray and just say, hey God, what were you saying? And we really felt like he said that we were just to serve where we were at and just see what happens. And actually we rested in that word. We kind of were just going with the flow. We let our strategy go down and just let our servant hearts pour out, and God's really blessed that. And at the start of this year, we did the same thing. We took a week to pray together, and we've just asked God, and we really feel that there's something coming. We can't quite put our finger on what that is, but whether it's just a reimagining a hope, whether it's people being released in this sudden urgency to do something with being trapped inside and going to church and asking these questions. But there's something moving. Like I described it to someone as like, it feels like God's been moving chess pieces across the nation for a couple of years. We've seen various leaders move, we've seen various ministries change position and redirect, and it's almost as if something's coming together. And right now we've got 140 churches across Scotland that are all running Alpha like at the same time. So they all started on the same week.
Wow.
And they've just been on this journey together. And it's just like, we've never seen unity in the kingdom like that before. So we're just, mate, as you can tell, I'm just super pumped. Like God's doing something, and
it's an amazing
just want
time
to be around it,
Yeah, it is an amazing time to be seeing this move. I think there's so much opportunity amongst obviously the tragedy, and I guess what the gospel message is hope in this time, isn't it? That's essentially what we're talking about. So that's amazing, Des, to hear that. And I guess moving on to kind of Cedarwood Festival, we've obviously, Des, you've been involved in various ways up to now with Cedarwood Festival. I think we did a Q&A and an amazing time down in 2019 in the north of England. But I'd love to just understand. Obviously, Cedarwood is kind of the idea of the festival is to unite the kind of the north of the continent, not the continent, but the north of the kind of the Great Britain, I would say, kind of of England and Scotland, and there's so much desire, I think, for church unity, but also across denominational unity, etc. And this word unity is banded around, but I just wonder if, for us, one of the hallmarks of that as a team putting this event together is working cross organizationally, cross denominationally, working across age groups, etc. And I'm just wondering, like, what for you at Alpha Scotland, what kind of draws you, and why do you want to be involved with Cedarwood Festival, apart from being asked?
Yeah, well, apart from being asked, my friend, I think, when we've spoken, when I was down in 2019, I interviewed Shane, and Shane and I hung out for the day with you, and my friend Kev was there. It was an amazing day. I just hearing
great times
what was going on, and Jonathan was speaking, and Andy was talking, and yeah, it was good. It was really good. But part of that was there was a real family dynamic, and actually that's how I understand church. I read the Bible, and it said that church was like family. That's what I understood. So family is the premier thing for me. So actually, let's put all our differences aside. Let's agree that we love Jesus. And if we love Jesus, the rest is incidental. Love God and love people. That's what we need to do, and that's what I actually think you guys embrace so well, and actually, just being a part of that, and actually saying, hey, like, let's just not worry about this stuff. Let's talk about the biggest questions. Let's wrestle with big issues and big ideas. Let's take them up and look at them from different theological perspectives and different positions and different socioeconomic standings and things like let's look at these things, but let's look at it initially from a place of family and love.
Exactly. That. Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head. I think one of the big things with Cedarwood Festival is that it is for all ages, it is for all denominations. We want to welcome that, and we want people to have an experience of a move of Christ. Not that they don't in other settings or formats, but it's an extended time where people can really gather as the body of Christ, as church with a capital C, and come together and be part of that. And so we're really excited, Des, to have you and Alpha Scotland and people from Alpha UK and from the South as well being part of it. It's from what I've understood as well, I think we're going to be having there'll be a stand where people can come and find out more about Alpha. And I think if things were to go to plan, there may be a possibility of doing a taster session, of what an Alpha course might look like for people to really understand a bit more. That's something we can have a chat about. But I'm excited to just to see how we can really have you guys represented well at the festival. But as I said to Des a minute ago, we've got really exciting plans that are going to be announced soon for Cedarwood Festival 2021. It's obviously going to look a bit different to what it would have done, but we believe God works in all these different ways, and He will continue to work through whatever happens in 2021 as well. So that's basically where we are. We're looking forward to having you with us, Des. And as we've talked about, festivals and events look very different in 2021. But Des, is there anything kind of from Scotland for the Cedarwood community that you can maybe share that you're looking forward to sharing maybe at the festival, being part of? Obviously, we've talked about family, but is there anything that anything that you've experienced with your Alpha community that you're looking forward to sharing with the Cedarwood guys as well?
Yeah, I think there's I think there's a joy in coming together, and like, look, let's be honest, right? I've been stuck in my house for a year. Like, I would go to the worst gig I've ever gone to in my life and have a great time right now, But But the reality is, as we come together, like, what's it going to look like? We need to be re-envisioned and set up to come out of this in a stronger place, not a going back place. Like, to steal a line from Father James Mallon, I think the church has been called from maintenance to mission, and that's what we've seen during 2020, and that's what I'm really passionate about seeing coming out going forward. You know, that actually, what does mission look like for us going forward in the micro as well as the macro? Like, how can we as a family move as one to see change happen across the world? You know?
Yeah. No, it's amazing. It's amazing. So as we just bring things to a wrap, obviously festivals are going to look very different this year. We're looking forward to having you as part of Cedarwood Festival. There's in whatever format that looks like, that will people will get to experience the beard.
Totally.
But,
Come on.
But how can just give the network who are listening, maybe live, but also going to be listening kind of in further months and weeks from now, what can we be praying for Alpha Scotland for, Des? And
Amazing.
and how can we be praying for that, just so our network can really be praying and look forward to seeing you and hearing what you're going to bring as well.
Wow. Yeah. So there's three things. I would love it if you could pray for vision. We always just want to see what God's doing. We just want to see what's going on and how can we be in step with Him. I think secondly, we want to pray for opportunities. So whether that's with guests, with churches, with friends, family, whoever it is, we just pray for opportunities. And thirdly, that we can just serve really, really well. Like, we at Alpha exist to serve the local church, and that's what we want to do before we do anything else. So if you can just pray for those things for us. So that's yeah, that's it, man. If we can keep those three things, we'll be flying.
It was vision, opportunity, and serving. There you go.
That's it, bro.
Those three.
Yeah.
Perfect. We will be doing that. And in terms of people finding out more about Alpha, Des, how can people do that? The links are obviously going to be in the description below, but how can people, just from your voice, how can people find out?
Yeah, just go to alpha.org, try alpha.org, try alpha.scot, find Alpha Scotland on social media. If you type Alpha and it doesn't come up, I'll be deeply disappointed. Look for the red question mark.
Yeah, don't follow the Greek symbol. Follow the red question mark. That's a great one. No, that's really cool. And Des, we're as I said, we're excited to have you as part of it and the rest of your team. That is a wrap for this episode of Cedarwood Faces. We're really thankful for Des joining us today. And to find out more about Des and the work of Alpha Scotland across the globe, links will be in the chat below, and you can follow that online afterwards as well. But finally, thank you to all our listeners, subscribers, and the Festival Network who are listening both now, live, and beyond. We look forward to next time. But until then, stay safe and God bless.
Thanks. See you later.
Cool. That's